Kuro has been in the kitchen non-stop since 1.0 of Wuthering Waves, and we've got wall running. They fixed that weird issue of vaulting over the roofs and the ledges, and then we got flying in 2.0, and now we got negative statuses. Now, I don't know if you guys remember before, but originally they were going to implement a elemental interaction reaction system in the same vein as Genshin Impact, but they scrapped it. And I assumed that they weren't going to do anything with elements anymore, but I was wrong. They instead, with 2.0's release, came out with negative statuses. Now, they didn't mention it explicitly that negative statuses were out, but they came out a couple days ago on February 9th, this post here explaining negative statuses, and on their live stream they mentioned it with Phoebe, who I assumed was going to be the first Wuthering Waves agent to get access to these statuses, but I was wrong. Actually, SPECTRO ROVER has access to it in their Liberation and Skill SPECTRO FRAZZLE. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but I wanted to go over negative statuses. You can think of them as Zenless Zone Zero's anomaly attributes, where they either do damage, they do something to the enemy, they slow them down, that kind of vein. But it's different. Instead of having a bar to build up, these statuses are built into the kit of the character. If we use SPECTRO ROVER as an example, they have their Liberation, applies 6 stacks, and if you read on their passive skill, they have an ability called Shimmer that prevents SPECTRO FRAZZLE stacks from reducing over time. I'll explain what that means again when we go into more detail about the specific effects of SPECTRO FRAZZLE. But as you can see, this change was added in 2.0. If I'm remembering correctly, I haven't played SPECTRO ROVER in a while, but this was not there. So they actively buffed Rover with the 2.0 patch, which I didn't realize because I don't play this character. So that's pretty good. So it brings up the question of, are they going to revamp older characters with negative statuses? Because that will buff a lot of the characters that don't feel as good. So if they do, that would be great. So let's hope that SPECTRO ROVER is not just a one-off or a testing ground that they want to do. So let's go into negative statuses here. So during battle, certain attribute attacks inflict negative status on the target. 6 types with the elements. New Resonator Phoebe utilizes SPECTRO FRAZZLE effect. So what SPECTRO FRAZZLE is, this is pretty obvious. Certain SPECTRO attacks inflict stackable SPECTRO FRAZZLE effect. Note certain SPECTRO attacks, so that doesn't mean the element itself. This is going to be attack specific. SPECTRO FRAZZLE effect deals SPECTRO damage to the target at regular intervals during its duration while reducing 1 stack of SPECTRO FRAZZLE effect. So as you keep using your skills, get their stacks on, this will tick down on its own and deal damage. So it's damage over time, a dot. Damage inflicted by SPECTRO FRAZZLE effect depends on Resonator's level, enemy's defense, damage, resistance, and number of stacks you have on them, not influenced by attack, crit rate, or other factors. And also note, if you have multiple Resonators that apply the SPECTRO FRAZZLE, so if you're using Phoebe or SPECTRO ROVER in the same team, the stacks will be based on the highest level Resonator, okay? So back with Rover SPECTRO, when you perform the skill and he has more than 50% of the diminutive sound, you inflict 2 stacks of SPECTRO FRAZZLE. And Shimmer retains their SPECTRO FRAZZLE effect stacked. So this makes SPECTRO ROVER just as strong as HAVOC ROVER if we're thinking about it. HAVOC ROVER is pretty nuts. You can see the amount of damage that he does, but with this probably brings him more in line. So he's not just relegated as a subpar healer, right? Phoebe is completely built around SPECTRO FRAZZLE, which makes her much more interesting. I originally did not care for Phoebe. I listened to her kit during the live stream, read some stuff, and it seemed very basic. Cool, yeah, she has teleporting, but with SPECTRO FRAZZLE, she has a chance to be a really strong character, depending on how well we can increase damage of SPECTRO FRAZZLE. See, with Absolution State, when she fights against enemies with stacks of SPECTRO FRAZZLE, she will be buffed. So, yeah, she's pretty good. I'm still not pulling for her, but yeah, not as disappointing anymore. Now, let's go over to the other status effects. So we got 5 more here. We got AERO Erosion. Inflicts AERO damage on the target at regular intervals as long as it lasts, with more stacks resulting in greater damage. So the more stacks you put on it, the more damage, obviously. HAVOC BANE accumulates stacks automatically while it remains active. Once it reaches maximum stacks, it deals HAVOC damage to the target, removes HAVOC BANE, and applies HAVOC BANE to nearby characters. So this is a one-time punch, and it'll automatically build itself, and it'll explode like a virus bomb and inflict damage to other characters. So that's pretty cool. I can imagine how much fun a character built around that would be. Imagine if they can proc the HAVOC BANE on their own too, like Honkai Star Rail's Kafka and Lightning. That's interesting. Fusion Burst. Once Fusion Burst hits its max stacks, it ignites and removes the stacks, dealing damage. So it's basically a bomb you build up. So if you have a character that attacks fast, that would make this insane. And I do have some 1.0 characters I think would benefit from this very well. GLACIO, CHAFE, stack increase, target speed gradually decrease, and at max stack stay freeze. Now, this one is not as amazing. I'm imagining some really good players can incorporate freezing into their rotations, but the lack of damage, for example, is Zenless Zone 0. When you freeze an enemy, you can shatter them and that'll do damage. But this is just freeze. It doesn't say anything about damage. So I think they should add some damaging applications to GLACIO CHAFE is my thoughts. Because this one and Electro Flare are both relegated to a debuffing scenario, so no damage on these two. Electro Flare, while Electro Flare is active, it weakens the target's attack, which with more stacks further reducing their strength. The fact that they don't do damage is kind of disappointing, but since we don't know what kind of characters they're going to make with this in mind, maybe those characters will be able to do damage with them. But for now, I'm finding these less appealing. Electro Flare would be good for like Yin Lin, since she's relegated to a off-field, and if you have a third character like Verena to buff your attack, go into Yin Lin to debuff the enemy's attack, your survivability will be much better, and then she'll still stack her off-field damage as well, and then go to your main DPS, and that's not too bad. But I kind of wish these two had more damage to them. But yeah, that's all they noted to us. So when I found out that Rover had this change to his kit, I went back into the game and looked through all the older characters to see if any of them got any of these negative effects. They don't. So chances are the old characters would probably not get these changes. But if they do, I do have some recommendations. AERO characters, Jiangjin would benefit from the AERO debuff pretty well. Imagine you're trying to build up that shield and it stacks erosion on the enemy. And when you switch out, you have your shield on your main DPS, and on the enemy, you have a stackable damaging debuff. So this would make her a more viable pick. Yang Yang, no one uses her. So maybe just throw it on her too, which would be fine. And probably also, but now you're probably thinking, yeah, why not just put it on everyone? No, I'm not thinking that at all, actually. Like for Electro, since it only debuffs attack, I can only imagine Lumi and Yinlin making good use of it. Of course, everyone can benefit from it, but Yanwu, Jiangli, and Kaocharo are fine on their own. Of course, Kaocharo's been, you know, power crept and deleted. His existence is gone, but I think Lumi and Yinlin would be the best ones to benefit from the negative effect. Fusion, probably Chixia. Because if you remember the fusion burst, the more you stack on the enemy, when you max stack the enemy with fusion burst, they'll blow up. So the faster you stack it, the quicker they'll blow up. So I feel like Chixia would be a good choice. Fusion burst is probably the best example of Zenless Zone Zero's anomaly build up, since you build up stacks to implode, and with Zenless Zone Zero, you build up anomaly to blow them up. And Chixia goes quick. She attacks fast. So I think she's like the best one to make use of it. More Teffy. He already just buffs attack. You don't need to give him any more stuff. GLACIO, who would benefit from freezing the enemy Sanhua, for sure. Zeji is already super strong, but maybe we could put on Baizi to give her more usability. But I don't like the GLACIO one. Not yet. HAVOC, Ouchie. I would have said Rochia as well, but since they didn't bother giving it to her, I guess they thought she didn't need it. But Tauchi would be cool. You get your shields. You get a debuff that spreads like a poison. That's good. Camellia, Danjin, and HAVOC Rover are all strong enough. They do not need that negative status. People are literally soloing bosses and TOA with Danjin with like a guitar. Okay, she doesn't need anything else. SPECTRO, Rover SPECTRO already got it. I think they're the only ones that needed it. Everyone else is fine. But with that in mind, I'm very, very curious how insane they're going to get with the future characters. As far as I can tell, Brant and Rochia do not have these negative statuses, so they're not going to give it to everyone. So that means the character builds that they will make sense, and I'm sure it will make those characters really fun with these effects in mind. But that's all I got. Let me know what you guys think. How would you like these additions? Would you change them in a certain way? What do you think about GLACIO and Electro Flare? I don't know about that yet. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. See ya.
幸せで